Well, I hope everybody's doing fine up to this point. I wanted to create a video, a short video, for two reasons. Number one, I wanted to give my 2 cents on the scientific method, and also provide you with a little bit of instruction or insight on your first lab report that comes due January 31st. And it's going to be titled Hypothetical Lab Report, because you remember we're in a online virtual lab setting, and so sometimes it's hard for us to get to a lab bench and construct an actual lab. I know most of you made it through the corn lab experiments where you worked with that little program and the infections in the corn and all that kind of stuff. It's all well and good and sort of gets you, I don't know where it gets you really. But at any rate, I feel like this hypothetical lab report may actually get you thinking more scientifically. So first of all, the scientific method, and I'm sure you've been exposed to that in past courses and at some point in your life. So to me, what is the scientific method? Number one, working in a science field, or scientific field, whether it's biology or chemistry or physics or all kinds of different aspects of biology, the scientist, he or she has some sort of sense or understanding of the field that they're working in. And so they can construct questions, probing questions that relate to their field. So there is some knowledge or expertise in the material that they're studying. And so they can make an educated guess, and that's what a hypothesis really entails, is some sort of speculation based on that researcher's or scientist's understanding of that particular phenomenon. So a hypothesis, part of that scientific method, a hypothesis, it's called an educated guess or educated speculation. It's called that because that person has some understanding of what they're observing and the question that they're asking. So it's not just some hodgepodge question that's thrown out there. It is based on some sort of understanding or knowledge of the subject that is being explored. So I relate it in the real world. I say outside of the realm of science, but everybody sort of thinks scientifically to some degree or another. But there's a mechanic that I use. His name is, he's a shade tree mechanic, very good guy. He's probably worked on automobiles and trucks for years. I'd say 50 years plus. His name is Junior Bumbelow. And I can think of one time when I don't have it anymore, environmental scientist, driving a big 8-cylinder pickup truck, gas guzzling kind of thing. But I took it to him to have him to look at it, and I knew I'd just had the brakes changed, and but it was still acting up. It was still, when I come to a stop sign, it was still a little kind of shimmy, and so I took it to him and I asked, I don't think it's the brake pads. I'm not sure what it is. So he looked at it real quick. He didn't even take the tires off. He jumped in the truck. We took it for a drive. And as we approached the stop sign, it shimmied like that coming up to the stop sign. And immediately he said, it's the calipers. Now, I didn't know what a caliper is. I know some things, but I didn't know what that was. But for Junior Bumbelow, an automobile mechanic, he had or has years, decades of working knowledge in the field, so he could make an educated guess. And in that realm, in that environment, that was his working hypothesis. What's wrong with that truck? Over years and years of observation and knowledge and understanding, that's the calipers. And sure enough, he went in there to test his hypothesis by making more observations and literally collecting data by taking the tires off and looking at it, that sure enough the calipers were bad. He replaced that and fixed the truck. So the scientific method can be used in any realm of life. It's just an approach that we use in science to address problems or answer questions. And so, the breakdown of the scientific method, making observations, formulating a hypothesis, collecting data, running research and experiments, and then analyzing that hypothesis to nullify it or verify it or support it. You know, all that's well and good, but that's how it works, just like the bungalow story. So keep that in mind as you're coming up with your hypothetical, and hypothetical means I'm looking for a made-up lab. So your hypothetical lab is a lab in which you make up. Now get this, it doesn't matter to me whether or not you actually perform your experiment. The key to this hypothetical lab is that you construct and write up a lab, and I suggest in the instructions in this, you'll see it when I release it, the instructions in this is that you construct this lab write-up like you were going to teach it to a 6th grade class or to younger individuals, and make it clear. And what I'm looking for is that you're able to develop a hypothesis, and in a classroom setting or in an experimental setting, be able to test that hypothesis. So it's up to you to come up with all kinds of ideas for a particular type of lab. Here's an example. What if a teacher walked into a classroom with a vacuum cleaner that wasn't working, and plugged it in, it didn't work, so obviously there's something wrong with it. And so now you could ask the class, well, let's use this for our lab experiment. What's wrong with this vacuum cleaner? And so the students could say, well, there's a short in the vacuum cleaner cord, or there is a blown fuse in the classroom, or maybe the vacuum cleaner comes on, but it's not picking anything up, and so maybe the belt is broken, or the bag is full, or and it doesn't have to be a vacuum cleaner. In fact, I don't really suggest that you do the vacuum cleaner one, but I want you, especially geared toward your major or your particular interest, to develop some type of laboratory experiment that would work and could demonstrate the mechanisms behind developing a hypothesis and demonstrate a hypothesis. So at any rate, I hope that helps, and if you have questions, always you're welcome to email me, ask me on the discussion board, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go inside where it's warm now. See ya.